We all love a good British sitcom, don't we? But for every hit show there are dozens, maybe hundreds of ideas that never make it past a single episode. The pilot. There are some well-documented failed pilots. Shows based on intriguing ideas, but for various reasons they didn't get commissioned. But what about the really forgotten ones? The phantom pilots of British television. The ones from decades past, some before the internet chronicled every single detail. We know the titles, who wrote them, maybe who was in the cast, but the stories, they're lost the mists of time. Today we're going on an archaeological dig into the forgotten sitcom pilots of the 1970s and 1980s to try and discover what they could have been. Our first orphan pilot dates back to 1974 and is understandably the least detailed in our records. Bird Alone was recorded on the 2nd of April 1974 for the 14th season of the BBC's Comedy Playhouse series, but like our other selections today, it was never broadcast. Comedy Playhouse was a long-running BBC anthology series, many successful shows like Steptoe and Son, until Death Us Do Part originated as Comedy Playhouse episodes. Unusually, the documentation doesn't list the author. However, lost media resources suggest it was written by husband and wife team Terence Brady and Charlotte Bingham. John Le Mesurier, with his cultured voice, often played vague and absent-minded characters and figures of authority. Liz Smith became one of the most recognisable faces on television and film and was described as the UK's favourite fictional grandmother. This was her only Comedy Playhouse role. Eutha Joyce played dramatic or villainous roles early in her career. The 1970s saw her rise to prominence through comedic, relatable portrayals of the British housewife, especially in Man About the House and George and Mildred. So what we do know is that there are three main characters, and the only character specified in the documentation is a judge, played by John Le Mesurier, so this strongly suggests a courtroom or prison scenario. Doing bird is a British slang expression for serving a prison sentence, so if the main character is alone, it fits the theme of separation from family or loved ones due to incarceration. There might even be a play on words if the main character was called Mrs. Bird. Liz Smith and Eutha Joyce were known for their strong character acting, and it's easy to imagine them in roles connected to such a scenario, perhaps as the person doing bird, a concerned family member, or even a fellow inmate. It sounds like Bird Alone could have been a very interesting and possibly quite dark comedy, or perhaps a more dramatic piece with comedic elements given the talents involved. It's a shame that it was not shown, especially with such a fantastic cast. The original recording is missing from the BBC archives, so unless it turns up in someone's loft or garage, no one will ever see it. Our next orphan pilot is Don't Move Now, and while we don't have a synopsis, there is a one-line description that reads, "Sitcom pilot about a removals firm." It was written by Raymond Allen, famous for creating Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. Also, the cast list gives some clues about the possible story. As we know it was about a removal firm, it's likely that Brian Glover was the owner, Cyril. Glover's persona, with his gruff, no-nonsense, yet exasperated and slightly intimidating presence, is perfect for the owner of a struggling removal firm. He'd be constantly battling his workers' incompetence and the customers' demands. David Kelly and David Batley could be his incompetent workers. Harry and Arnold, a brilliant pairing. Both Kelly and Batley were masters of playing genial, often bewildered and profoundly incompetent characters. David Kelly is known for his physical comedy and wide-eyed innocence, like the lazy Irish builder in Fawlty Towers. David Batley, with his more deadpan, slow-witted charm, would be the perfect foil, perhaps offering unhelpful advice or misinterpreting simple instructions. Richard Davies and Daphne Anderson could be a husband and wife who are unfortunate customers. This dynamic is central to many British sitcoms, and these two actors would play it perfectly. Richard Davies is known for his roles as exasperated everyman figures. He'd be the husband slowly driven to distraction or despair by the removal men and his wife. Daphne Anderson often played elegant, slightly flustered or prim characters. She could be the long-suffering wife trying to maintain decorum amidst the chaos of her possessions being mishandled. Back in the removals firm office is Anne Hamilton as Cyril's secretary. This is a classic sitcom role. Hamilton, who often played brisk or no-nonsense characters, could be the long-suffering secretary trying to keep the chaotic firm organised. She would be the cynical voice of reason. Leonard Pearce and Stan Van would feature as additional removal men or other small roles. Leonard Pearce wasn't well known yet. He'd later find fame as Grandad in Only Fools and Horses. Stan Van, an actor with the delightful irony of his name Van, combined with his history of playing delivery and removal men in other sitcoms, makes him a shoo-in for another, perhaps even more hapless removal man. The conflict between the firm's chaos and the customer's desire for a smooth move would be the engine of the comedy. It's a fantastic concept for a pilot. Raymond Allen had a number of other pilot projects that didn't get picked up for a full series after his major success with Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. This just shows that even successful writers face many rejections or pilots that don't quite hit the mark for commissioning. Our third orphan pilot is another by Raymond Allen, but this time co-written by Jimmy Perry. Perhaps Perry's presence was stipulated by the BBC to try and ensure success. This collaboration is notable. Both were highly successful sitcom writers, and with David Croft as producer and director, we can almost guarantee a classic British sitcom. We only know two members of the cast, Matthew Kelly and Maria Aitken, although the lack of a detailed cast list is quite typical for a pilot. As Raymond Allen was the creator of Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, this immediately suggests a central character who, despite good intentions, is prone to catastrophic accidents, misunderstandings and physical comedy. Jimmy Perry was co-creator of Dad's Army, It Ain't Our Fault Mum and Heidi High. His style often features ensemble casts, strong characters in a specific, often contained setting, a military camp, holiday camp, and with a blend of gentle humour with character-driven plots. Having David Croft as director-producer is huge. Croft was a master of the British sitcom, working on all of Perry's hits and many others like Are You Being Served? His involvement guarantees precise comedic timing and pacing, an emphasis on visual gags and physical comedy, clear character dynamics and strong ensemble potential. Matthew Kelly had only one uncredited TV appearance before this. He's almost certainly Sydney. He would go on to become a versatile performer, known for his stage work including musicals and serious dramas, as well as presenting on TV. Crucially, he was a natural comedic actor with a likeable, slightly innocent quality. Maria Aitken was an established actor by 1977, known for her sophisticated, often urbane and witty performances. She frequently played intelligent, slightly aloof or exasperated women. Her roles often had an upper-class or intellectual air. She would be the perfect foil to Sydney. Sydney's genius is either unconventional, misunderstood, or most likely, for comedy purposes, wildly impractical and prone to catastrophic Frank Spencer-esque mishaps. Maria Aitken's character would be the sophisticated, perhaps long-suffering or constantly exasperated wife or partner, a common sitcom dynamic, pointing out the obvious flaws in Sydney's plans or the absurdity of his claims of genius. Then she's constantly tidying up his physical and metaphorical messes. If Sydney resembled the bumbling, well-meaning, disaster-prone archetype of Frank Spencer too closely, it would have been a major hurdle for commissioning. The BBC might have been hesitant to commission another show that felt too similar to a recent smash hit, even if it was from the same writer. they would want to avoid oversaturating the market with a similar comedic style or giving the impression they were simply trying to replicate some others to have 'em. While Sydney Eurogenius had an all-star team with Croft, Perry and Allen and talented leads in Kelly and Aitken, the challenge of creating a distinct comedic voice separate from the colossal shadow of Frank Spencer was very real. It highlights how difficult it can be for a writer to move on from a character that becomes truly iconic. The fact that even this combination didn't result in a commissioned series highlights the competitive nature of TV commissioning. The next orphan pilot for us to investigate is Playland from 1982, written by Mark Wallington and Richard Fiddy. Mark and Richard were regular collaborators, having written for Not the 9 O'Clock News, the late night Channel 4 comedy Little Armadillos and the TV film The Ballad of Johnny Vanguard. Fiddy is also a TV historian and consultant for the British Film Institute and has written books like Missing Believed Wiped. This pilot might have been inspired by their work on Little Armadillos, that was a hybrid sitcom sketch show about a seedy nightclub. The clues come from the title and the cast. Norman Rodway had a distinguished career and frequently played authoritative, often intellectual or legal figures. It's highly likely he'd be on the side of law and order, perhaps a senior detective, a judge or Queen's Counsel. Peter Woodthorpe's roles often veered into the slightly eccentric. He played Max, the pathologist, in the early episodes of Inspector Morse, so a doctor, perhaps a forensic pathologist like Max, or more senior, perhaps cynical police figure, would fit his established type perfectly. Charles Ray's credits include PC Harry Coombs in police drama Hunter's Walk and a police inspector in Budgie. He also played a CID sergeant in Cowboys. He very much fits the mould of a working class, gruff but dedicated police officer. The other two actors listed, Michael Deeks and John Tordoff, often had parts as dodgy characters. This is the perfect counterbalance to the law side. The title Playland could be an ironic twist on the lack of play or leisure pursuits in the show, or a dark, ironic contrast to the serious business of crime and law enforcement. The setting might even literally be a seedy amusement arcade that becomes a hub for criminal activity. This creates immediate comedic friction, the light innocent name against the gritty or farcical reality of crime. So perhaps the amusement arcade is called Playland. It's a natural backdrop for low-level criminals trying to look tough but constantly tripping over themselves. The arcade could be our incompetent criminals' hangout, their meeting point, or even the scene of their failed crimes. This approach of using just a small main cast allows the pilot to be tightly focused on establishing the core dynamic with the actors, while simultaneously demonstrating that the world of Playland is much larger and populated by a variety of characters ready to be explored if the series gets commissioned. It's a clever way to budget for the pilot while promising richness for the future. Sadly, we'll never get to see it or experience the colourful squalor of the Playland arcade. Our final orphan pilot for today is Master of Innocence, written by Ian Davidson and Peter Vincent. They are primarily known for their work on sitcoms and sketch comedy that often focused on domestic situations, character-driven humour and relatable social awkwardness. Their most famous collaboration is arguably Sorry, that starred Ronnie Corbett as the middle-aged librarian still living with his overbearing mother and browbeaten father. The show epitomised their gentle observational comedy, often highlighting the frustrations and small victories of everyday life. They also wrote extensively for The Two Ronnies, a show known for its wordplay, visual gags and diverse characters, often set in mundane British scenarios like pubs or shops. This pilot stars Ronnie Corbett along with 4 other actors who had appeared in Sorry, meaning Davidson and Vincent would be writing for actors they knew, allowing for them to tailor the dialogue and situations to the actors' strengths. This almost guarantees their signature style of humour, often revolving around social awkwardness, gentle exasperation and character foibles. The presence of Ronnie Corbett in this pilot, a very popular and established comedian, suggests the BBC had high hopes, but it still didn't lead to a series. The existence of a brigadier, major, captain and sergeant strongly points towards a military setting or a scenario involving the armed forces. Corbett and Jane Downs play Hadrian Lamb and Millie Lamb, which evokes the idea of lambs to the slaughter, suggesting a vulnerability that would fit perfectly with them being the titular innocents. If Hadrian and Millie, as innocents, had accidentally discovered a military secret, it would be naturally bring them into conflict with the service personnel who would be trying to suppress the information or retrieve it. The master could be a shadowy figure orchestrating events, and W must be a code name for a key figure in the military establishment. A doctor and a professor might be involved in the creation or analysis of these secrets, perhaps scientific or technological in nature, while the Minister of Defence would be the ultimate authority responsible for such sensitive information, but firmly seated behind a desk. He's not getting his hands dirty. Peter Sellier is a master of portraying establishment figures, often with a subtle air of world-weary cynicism or slightly baffled authority. He was in Keeping Up Appearances as the Major and an episode of Sorry as Mr. Endicott. The character W is an obvious nod to M from the James Bond series, the head of MI6. Terence Hardiman is known for playing authoritative, often stern or imposing figures, famously the Demon Headmaster. He was also in Sorry. Pippa Page was also in Sorry as Sandra in The Primal Scream, so to speak. Her casting as a major alongside Hardiman's brigadier suggests another formal military presence. Alan Penn was the almoner in the Sorry episode Mothers and Brothers. His Dr. Harbinger character suggests he's involved in something that will bring about a major change or revelation. He could be the literal harbinger of the military secrets that Hadrian and Millie stumble upon. Given the writer's backgrounds, a pilot called Master of Innocence, with a plot involving military secrets, brigadiers and a potential lambs to the slaughter scenario does sound like a significant departure for them. Even comedy writers sometimes try their hand at different styles. Perhaps they were exploring a more farcical or even satirical take on the spy military thriller genre, injecting their characteristic humour into a new setting. It's fascinating that they ventured into something with such potentially high stakes compared to the more grounded comedies they're known for. It would have been interesting to know more about the tone of Master of Innocence. Was it a straight-up farce, a black comedy, or did it retain some of the gentler observational humour of their other works, just in a more unusual setting? Sadly, we'll never know. It's fascinating, isn't it? These fragments of television history, just a few details, but enough to spark our imaginations. Every one of these was someone's dream, a script painstakingly written, a pilot lovingly produced, hoping to become the next big thing. So, which of these orphan pilots do you think had the most potential? What kind of show do you imagine it was? Let me know in the comments below. And if you know any hidden details about these specific pilots, don't keep them to yourself, share them with the community.